Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Modi Gampir. Let's get started. Our top story tonight on Gravitas is about the Russian President Vladimir Putin's open challenge to the West. He has dared the US to a missile duel. Is Russia's Mach-10 Oreshnik missile invincible? Will the West take up this challenge? We decode the larger message behind Vladimir Putin's words and focus on what they really mean for the war, for the West and beyond. And here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. Indian NSA Ajit Doval has achieved a breakthrough on Mansarovar Yatra and stability on the Himalaya border. We tell you all about this. The United States says that China's military power is growing at an unprecedented rate. We get you the bigger story and the larger implications. Is Russia's cancer vaccine a game changer in the fight against cancer? We discuss all this and much more coming up. Our top story tonight on Gravitas is about the Russian President Vladimir Putin's explosive challenge to the West. It's an open dare. Can they stop Russia's Mach-10 Oreshnik missile? Putin says Russia is ready for a missile duel with the United States. It does not get more direct than this. The question remains, will the West take up the challenge? Let's first tell you more about what the Russian leader said. In his annual press conference in Moscow, Putin spoke about the hypersonic Oreshnik missile that can fly at Mach 10, 10 times the speed of sound. Putin says it is invincible against any Western defense system, further daring the United States and its allies to a high-tech duel. Listen in to his words.
There is no chance to shoot down these missiles. Well, if these Western experts you mentioned think so, that Oreshnik can be shot down, we propose them and those in the West and the United States who pay them for their analysis to conduct some kind of technological experiment, a high-tech duel of the 21st century. Let them name some object, let's say in Kyiv, concentrate all their air defense and missile defense forces there, and we will hit it with Oreshnik and see what happens. We are ready for such an experiment. Is the other side ready?
Is the other side ready, he asks. Now, just to understand the gravity of Putin's comments, let's just take a step back here. You see, the arms race between the US and Russia has been dangerously relentless, with each side trying their best to outdo the other, outpace the other in technology, in firepower. With the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis, a nuclear standoff nearly bringing the world to a nuclear war, today the stakes seem to be just as high. Hypersonic missiles are changing the game, capable of reaching unimaginable speeds and extremely difficult to intercept. They are designed to basically evade traditional air defenses. The US has spent billions trying to develop its own versions. A lot of money has been spent. According to Putin, Russia's Oreshnik missile is invincible. He says modern air defense systems cannot intercept such missiles. That's impossible, he says, adding, as of today, there are no means of counteracting such a weapon, according to him. Basically, the Russian leader is extremely confident of what the country has built. And what's the basis for that kind of confidence? What makes the Oreshnik so formidable? Oreshnik means hazel tree in Russian, by the way. According to reports, the missile can change course mid-flight, dodging any attempts to shoot it down. The missile was first used last month in a strike against the Ukrainian city of Dnipro. Putin had said it was a direct response to Ukraine using long-range missiles supplied by the US, and Putin's latest comments come just days after he announced that the Oreshnik will soon enter serial production. These missiles, according to him, are not just for Russia's defense, but also for its allies. Belarus, for instance, has already secured a deal to receive these missiles reportedly free of charge. So can the US intercept Russia's Oreshnik? Will it take up this open challenge? And what would that even mean? Can US systems handle such threats? Are they prepared? The Pentagon warned in its annual report to Congress last year that if Washington does not act quickly to expedite hypersonic missile defense capabilities, deterrence may fail. The US has been developing its own hypersonic weapons and tested one just last week in Florida. But there is one stark difference. Russia's Oreshnik missile is battle ready. Like we said, it has already been used in battle against Ukraine. Also, Putin's message wasn't just about the Oreshnik. He also doubled down on Russia's broader military strategy, particularly in Ukraine, stating that Russia has the strength and the resources to, quote-unquote, restore all its historical territories, including Donbass and Novorossiya, further saying that Russia is making daily advances on the Ukrainian front lines and promising that all the occupied regions would be fully restored. Listen in.
Russian army will definitely knock out the enemy from Kursk region, and secondly, after that, it will be possible to assess the damage. But the most important thing is that everything will be restored. There can be no doubt.
Not just that, Putin also reiterated Russia's right to use nuclear weapons if its sovereignty is threatened.
These threats for Russia include the emergence of missile defense systems and some other things, and we name them in the nuclear doctrine. Then we talk about increasing the responsibility of non-nuclear states that can take part in aggression against the Russian Federation together with countries that possess nuclear weapons. And if such countries and their allies create a threat to our sovereignty, the very existence of Russia, then we will consider ourselves entitled to use our nuclear weapons against them.
Putin's statements have far-reaching implications. Trying to label Russia as a global force to be reckoned with, a country that will not be outmatched. In this context, the Oreshnik missile is more than just a weapon. It's a declaration that Russia is ready to take on the West, not just in Ukraine, but on the global stage. Is the West ready, is the big question. Is it underestimating Russia's military might? Can it afford to do that? And most importantly, what is America's strategy at this point? Does it have what it takes? Meanwhile, Donald Trump is pushing for a ceasefire in the Russia-Ukraine war, while on the other hand, the NATO chief is asserting that they want to make sure that Ukraine has what it needs to prevent Putin from winning. But Kiev today is facing immense pressure to negotiate on terms that could permanently alter its territorial integrity and sovereignty. Our next story exploring what the end game for Ukraine really could be.
Russia's relentless onslaught continues. Over 3 months, Moscow has launched more than 6,000 explosive drones and missiles onto Ukrainian soil. Thermobaric warheads and radar-evading missiles rain down, crippling power grids and devastating morale. One new Russian tactic is deploying fleets of cheap decoy drones to exhaust Ukraine's air defenses. The cost to civilian life and infrastructure is mounting. In eastern Ukraine, Russia has gained ground. Ukrainian forces face attrition not just on the battlefield, but within their own borders. Conscription has intensified as manpower shortages grew. Many reluctant citizens unwilling to fight are now forcibly drafted. All this while civilians endure freezing winters in darkness, their cities battered by incessant airstrikes. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has subtly shifted his tone. While he once firmly opposed ceding any Russian-occupied territory, now he makes a big admission that the Ukrainian military cannot win back the Donbass and Crimea from the Russians. The Russian president, during his annual press conference, exudes confidence.
I must say that the situation is changing dramatically. You know this well. I just want to confirm it. Movement is going on along the entire front line every day. And as I already said, we are not talking about advancing 100, 200 or 300 meters. Our fighters are taking and reclaiming territory in square kilometers. I want to emphasize, every day.
Responding to a reporter, Putin says Russia is ready to compromise with Trump on the Ukraine war.
Politics is the art of compromise, and we have always said that we are ready for both negotiations and compromises. It is just that the opposite side, in the literal and figurative sense of the word, refused to negotiate. And we are always ready for this. The result of these negotiations is always a compromise.
Zelensky hints he is willing to cede territory in exchange for NATO membership. The Western military bloc's new chief promises to provide all the support to Kyiv.
I think we would be very wise to put some lid on this and focus on the business at hand. And the business at hand is to make sure that Ukraine has what it needs to prevent Putin from winning and for Ukraine to prevail.
Yet Western powers like Berlin and Washington remain hesitant to move Ukraine closer to NATO. Adding to the urgency is Donald Trump's return to the White House. He's pushing for a quick ceasefire. This uncertainty complicates Ukraine's position, forcing it to weigh the risk of losing American support against the cost of continuing the war. For Ukraine, the stakes are existential. Negotiation could mean territorial loss, a bitter pill to swallow, but the ongoing war risks greater destruction and potential abandonment by weary allies. For Ukraine, the endgame is a high-wire act between survival and sovereignty, with no guarantees on either side. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Shifting focus for now, India and China have agreed on the resumption of the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra in the 23rd meeting of the special representatives. Also, they agreed to cross-border tourism, including in areas like Tibet, cross-border river cooperation and Nathula border trade. This was the first special representative level meeting since the flare-up in the western sector of the India-China border areas in 2020. During the meeting, the National Security Advisor Ajit Doval and the Chinese Foreign Minister stressed on the need to maintain peace and reaffirmed commitment to continue seeking a fair, reasonable and mutually acceptable packaged solution to the boundary issue. The special representatives of India and China had started talks to resolve the boundary dispute in 2003. They had reached an agreement in 2005 on political parameters and guiding principles for settlement of the boundary question. Article 3 of the 2005 agreement says both sides should, in spirit of mutual respect and mutual understanding, make meaningful and mutually acceptable adjustments to their respective positions on the boundary question so as to arrive at a package settlement to the boundary question. Doval and Wang Yi had held the last SR level meet on the 21st of December 2019, just a few months before the military standoff started along the LAC. The negotiations remain stalled as the bilateral relations plunged over the past 4.5 years. The October 21 deal between the Indian Army and the Chinese PLA on patrolling arrangements in the Depsang and Demchok areas in the eastern Ladakh area marked the end of the process of disengagement of frontline troops along the LAC. It paved the way for a meeting between Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Chinese President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the BRICS summit in Kazan in Russia. And it was in this meeting that they agreed that the special representatives would restart the boundary negotiations. During the meeting on Wednesday, the Indian and Chinese special representatives emphasized on the need to ensure peaceful conditions on the ground so that the issues on the border do not hold back the normal development of bilateral ties. Doval has in fact invited Wang Yi to visit India to hold the next round of the SR meeting. Besides meeting the Chinese Foreign Minister, India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval also met the Chinese Vice President. Meanwhile, the US Department of Defense has said China has not scaled down its huge military presence along the LAC with India. Pentagon's annual report on China's military capability said the PLA remains focused on developing capabilities to dissuade, deter, or defeat any third-party intervention in the entire Indo-Pacific region. The US says that China's military power is growing at an unprecedented rate. The Pentagon's annual report saying Beijing is making its most ambitious move yet, a massive expansion of its nuclear arsenal. Our next story detailing how the American assessment says that China is rapidly working on its goal to expand its long-range missiles, which can hit deep within the United States.
China's military rise is reshaping global power dynamics. Its arsenal is expanding. Its ambitions are soaring. Its defense spending has doubled in the past decade. Beijing is transforming into a dominant force across land, sea, air and space. The latest Pentagon report reveals that China is rapidly accelerating its nuclear weapons program, with more than 600 nuclear warheads already in its stockpile. China has added more than 100 warheads in the past year alone. The People's Liberation Army is projected to possess over 1,000 warheads by 2030. This would represent one of the fastest nuclear build-ups in history, challenging decades of US strategic dominance. Though in terms of total nuclear arsenal, it is still below the stockpile of Americans and Russians. What is more alarming for Pentagon is that Chinese military is developing a new conventional ICBM that could strike Hawaii, Alaska and the continental US. Pentagon's annual report says that China's military rise doesn't stop there. Its navy is now the world's largest by fleet size, boasting modern destroyers, submarines and aircraft carriers. The PLA Air Force is expanding its long-range capabilities, conducting joint bomber drills with Russia and exploring new overseas operational locations. China's investments in space weapons signals its determination to neutralize the US's orbital advantage. The Pentagon warns that this dramatic expansion in nuclear and military capabilities could upend the global balance of power. As China builds its arsenal, it is also intensifying efforts to modernize its military infrastructure, from advanced missile systems to hypersonic weapons. Beijing is preparing to assert its dominance in any future conflict. Adding to the tensions is the incoming Trump administration, which promises to take a hardline approach to counter Beijing. President-elect Donald Trump's policies are expected to focus on economic pressure, military containment. Trump is seeking to fill his administration with China hawks. With its military ambitions spanning nuclear expansion, naval dominance and aerospace advancements, China is positioning itself as a formidable global challenger. The world watches with unease as a new arms race intensifies. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
The United States has imposed new sanctions on 4 Pakistani entities for their involvement in the development of the country's long-range ballistic missiles. Pakistan's foreign ministry, in fact, has condemned the U.S. actions as unfortunate and biased, claiming it will harm regional stability. The sanctioned entities, including Pakistan's state-owned defense agency, the National Development Complex, responsible for developing Pakistan's ballistic missiles, including the Shaheen family of missiles, a nuclear-capable ballistic missile system developed by Pakistan. The Shaheen missiles are a significant concern for regional security, given their ability to deliver nuclear warheads. The Shaheen 3 missile, in particular, has a range of around 2,750 kilometers, making it capable of reaching targets in India and beyond. The missile's nuclear capability raises the potential risk of nuclear conflict in the region, which has left the United States concerned. Pakistan has a history of developing nuclear weapons, conducting its first nuclear test in 1998. The country's nuclear arsenal is estimated to be around 170 warheads. However, Pakistan has refused to sign the Non-Proliferation Treaty, a cornerstone of the international system designed to basically prevent the spread of nuclear weapons. Apart from Pakistan's National Development Complex, the other 3 entities that have been sanctioned are affiliates International, Akhtar and Sons, and Rockside Enterprise, which are all based in Karachi. According to the State Department, these companies worked closely with the NDC to obtain the necessary components for the ballistic missile program and missile testing equipment. The sanctions freeze any U.S. property belonging to the targeted entities and bar Americans from doing business with them. The U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller emphasized that the U.S. will continue to take action against proliferation and associated procurement activities that raise concerns. This move is part of the U.S. effort to prevent the spread of weapons of mass destruction and their delivery systems. Shifting focus now to India. 5 terrorists have been killed, 2 security personnel injured in an encounter that broke out in the Kulgam district of India's Jammu and Kashmir after receiving specific intelligence inputs regarding the presence of terrorists. The Indian Army and the J&K police launched a cordon and search operation in the Kader area. When challenged by the security forces, terrorists opened fire and an encounter followed. Search and cleanup operations are still underway.
As far as identification is concerned, the operation is still ongoing. It is possible that these terrorists have a connection to the Hizbul Mujahideen. The rest of the information will be disclosed once the operation concludes.
बाकी जो है वो ऑपरेशन की डिटेल हम ऑपरेशन के कंक्लूड होने के बाद बता देंगे.
Reports saying the Union Home Minister will be chairing a high-level security meeting in the national capital. The official cited in the report saying that the meeting will primarily focus on critical security issues, with a special emphasis on the situation in Jammu and Kashmir. The Lieutenant Governor of Jammu and Kashmir also to be attending that meeting. Early this month, a terrorist linked with the Lashkar-e-Toiba was killed in an encounter in Jammu and Kashmir's Dachigram area. The terrorist Junaid Ahmad Bhatt was involved in the targeted killings of civilians in Gagangir, Ganderbal and others. And our special correspondent Idris Lone has been tracking those developments very closely. He sent us this report earlier from Srinagar. Take a look.
5 militants have been killed in an operation in South Kashmir's Kulgam district. 2 security personnel have also been injured who have been evacuated to Indian Army's base hospital and their condition is said to be stable. The Indian Army has just said that all 5 militant bodies have been now retrieved from the operation site. They've also recovered arms and ammunition from their possession. Security forces believe that all the 5 militants killed in today's encounter are locals. Now, security forces are carrying out a massive search operation in the area, while as security has been put on high alert across south of Kashmir, in major districts of Shupian, Anantnag, Pulwama, as well as Kulgam. This encounter comes after a month when we saw the last encounter taking place in Srinagar, where one militant was killed who was responsible for the Gagangir attack in which 7 civilians were killed. With video journalist Firoz Idris Lone for WION World is One.
Israel has sought the release of 34 hostages in the first stage of the ceasefire deal in Gaza, claiming the Hezbollah-affiliated Al-Mayadeen news outlet, citing an anonymous Hamas official. The 34 hostages include all remaining women and children, female IDF soldiers, and the sick and elderly. According to the report, Israel in return will release an unconfirmed number of Palestinian security prisoners, including some serving life sentences. The Hamas official tells Al-Mayadeen that during the first 42-day phase of the ceasefire, Israel will allow increased flow of humanitarian aid to enter the Strip, as well as the equipment needed to repair and rebuild Gaza's hospitals and public facilities. The official further claiming that Israel has also agreed to withdraw from the densely populated areas in the Strip during this phase. He says that while all parties have agreed to reopen the Rafah crossing on the border with Egypt during the first phase, the issue of who will maintain control of the crossing is yet to be resolved. Meanwhile, the Israeli Chief of Staff, Herzi Halevi, has said that the Israeli army is exerting pressure on Hamas daily, driving it into greater distress to ensure the return of the 100 hostages.
We are dismantling Hamas and targeting its infrastructure and forces so that there will never be another October 7th. We are exerting pressure on Hamas daily, driving it into greater distress to ensure the return of the 100 hostages, hopefully alive, and for those who are not, to provide them a burial in Israel.
The military, in fact, released video of Halevi visiting forces in the southern Gaza Strip of Rafah on Wednesday. Israel ordered Palestinians to evacuate another section of central Gaza ahead of an offensive in the built-up Borej refugee camp. Even as Israel and Hamas appear to inch closer to a ceasefire in the 14-month war, Israeli bombardment and the offensive in Gaza killing more than 45,000 Palestinians during the war, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. The ministry's tally does not distinguish between combatants and civilians, but it says more than half the dead were women and children. Meanwhile, in the latest, the Israeli army has said sirens were sounded across central Israel as it intercepted a missile fired from Yemen. The Israeli Air Force intercepted the missile before it crossed into Israeli territory, reportedly. The military, in a statement, said that warning sirens were sounded due to the possibility of falling debris from the interception. This is the second time this week that the Israeli military has intercepted a missile from Yemen. Shortly after, Israel said it struck ports and energy infrastructure it alleges are used by Houthi rebels. According to the army, precise strikes were conducted on Houthi military targets in Yemen, including ports and energy infrastructure in Sana'a, which the Houthis have been using in their military actions.
The Houthis have been carrying out attacks against Israel in violation of international law, and the Houthi regime is a threat to peace and security in the region.
Later, Houthi group spokesperson saying that the rebels had targeted 2 specific military sites near Tel Aviv with hypersonic ballistic missiles, and the operation was carried out simultaneously with the Israeli aggression in Yemen, Sana'a and Hodeidah.
The operation was carried out simultaneously with the Israeli aggression on civilian facilities in the capital Sana'a and the Hodeidah governorate, including power stations, and our response came within the natural and legitimate response.
In other developments, the IDF soldiers located an underground tunnel route in southern Lebanon that led to a Hezbollah command center, in which they reportedly discovered weapons, surveillance systems, and additional military equipment used by the group. Nearby, several weapon storage facilities were found where hundreds of explosives, rifles, grenades, and additional military equipment were stored. The engineering troops dismantled the command center and the underground tunnel route, confiscating all the weapons found in the area. Our next story is about the world's wealthiest man, Elon Musk. He is the world's richest by a landslide. In fact, his net worth has skyrocketed to an estimated $486 billion. And you know what that means? Basically, it makes him wealthier than Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg combined. Let that sink in. According to the Bloomberg Billionaires Index, Elon Musk has seen his fortune rise by $224 billion since the US election. Tesla's share price doubled from $242 to $479.86 since November 5. Musk's rise is reportedly powered by his leadership at Tesla, SpaceX, and XAI, along with strategic ties to the incoming Trump administration. Musk's wealth surge has placed him far ahead of his rivals. Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, is at $250 billion, while Mark Zuckerberg, the Meta CEO, is at $219 billion, 219. Interestingly, Musk's wealth has rebounded after losing almost $200 billion in 2022. Beyond Tesla's historic stock gains, Musk's 42% stake in SpaceX, now valued at $350 billion, and his ownership of XAI, valued at $50 billion, have cemented his lead. His recent financial windfall also stemming from expectations that Trump's administration will favor policies benefiting electric vehicles, autonomous driving, and cryptocurrency. Just to put those numbers into perspective and just to give you an idea of how enormous his mountain of wealth is, Elon Musk's fortune is larger than the GDP of Vietnam, Bangladesh, and the Philippines, with 11 zeros in his wealth figure. $400 billion is a jaw-dropping sum after all. It's also, by the way, nearly half the market value of Tesla and about 40% of Amazon's total market cap. That's more than the entire worth of companies like Meta, Nvidia, Berkshire Hathaway combined. Musk's wealth now eclipsing the economies of entire countries, redefining the scale of global wealth. However, his fortune raises concerns over potential conflicts of interest, as Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink rely on federal contracts and regulations. His close association with Donald Trump, who has asked Musk to lead a new Department of Government Efficiency, is under scrutiny. Senator Elizabeth Warren has reportedly called for transparency, questioning if Musk's influence is aligned with public interest or his business gains. Meanwhile, Musk's dominance in the EV and space sectors is showing no signs of slowing down. And we now shift our focus to the UK. Is it becoming the Western capital for Sharia courts? According to a report by The Times, the Sharia courts, which have grown to 85 in number since 1982, now hold significant sway over the lives of thousands of people across the UK. In fact, an app endorsed by a Sharia court reportedly allows Muslim men in the UK to select the number of wives they have from a drop-down menu from 1 to up to 4. The same app also allows for the creation of Islamic wills, where daughters inherit only half the share of sons, reportedly. Around 100,000 Islamic marriages believed to have been conducted in the UK, reportedly many without any official registration with the civil authorities. These courts, comprised almost entirely of male Islamic scholars, are often the sole authority in granting divorce. If a woman is seeking to end her marriage but her husband refuses to grant it, she can turn to one of these courts for assistance. As per experts, the decisions by Sharia court often directly contradicting the rights guaranteed by British law. Take the case of preacher Haitham Al-Haddad, for example, one of the more prominent figures in the UK's Sharia court system. In the year 2009, he was recorded stating that a man should not be questioned about hitting his wife because such matters are between the couple. In fact, there are some people in the UK who are fighting against religious courts. Baroness Cox, a former academic and a crossbench member of the House of Lords, has reportedly long advocated for legislation to protect women from discrimination under Sharia law. However, past efforts to regulate these councils have reportedly been met with resistance from the government. Former UK Prime Minister Theresa May, as Home Secretary, commissioned a review into Sharia courts, but ultimately the Conservative government refused to regulate them, citing concerns about presenting them as an alternative to British law. The UK government reportedly insists that Sharia law does not form any part of British law, but at the same time, has it already become the Western capital for Sharia courts? The Democratic Republic of Congo has reportedly filed criminal complaints in France and Belgium against Apple. Congo has accused the tech giant of using minerals linked to the conflict. The DRC has alleged that Apple is sourcing blood minerals from the region. So the question is, what are blood minerals? Although naturally sourced, these minerals are often sourced from conflicted regions, often controlled by local gangs and the mineral mafia. Lawyers acting on behalf of the Congolese government claim that these minerals fuel violence and enable armed groups in the region to continue their operations, contributing to forced labor, child exploitation, and environmental destruction. Three of the most used and abused minerals in the region reportedly are tin, tantalum, and tungsten, the 3 Ts. These minerals are crucial in the production of electronics like phones, computers. Apple has denied these allegations, stating that it has taken the steps to suspend sourcing minerals from conflict zones. The DRC's complaints aim to hold Apple accountable for its role in what the lawyers call deceptive commercial practices. While the complaints have been lodged, authorities in France and Belgium will determine whether there is sufficient evidence to investigate further and potentially file criminal charges. Eastern DRC, one of the world's most mineral-rich regions, is facing severe instability with armed groups battling for control of mining areas. According to the UN, millions of people have been displaced due to the ongoing violence. The Congolese government and the UN experts allege that minerals extracted from these conflict zones are smuggled through neighboring Rwanda before entering the global supply chain, an allegation that Rwanda has denied in the past. Apple has reportedly informed its suppliers to halt sourcing tin, tantalum, tungsten, and gold from DRC and Rwanda, especially in light of the escalating violence in the region. On to some news from Russia now. This story is about what's being called a major medical breakthrough. According to reports, Russia has developed a cancer vaccine. You heard that right. And what's more, Russia plans a rollout as soon as early 2025. Also, according to the Russian Health Ministry, the vaccine will be distributed free of cost. Reports suggesting Russia has also promised no-cost treatment for terminally ill patients. Remember, just earlier this year, Russian President Vladimir Putin hinted at progress in cancer vaccine development. In February, Putin, in televised remarks, had said, and I'm quoting here, "We have come very close to the creation of so-called cancer vaccines and immunomodulatory drugs of a new generation," quote unquote. Experts suggest that by next generation, Putin meant the potential of artificial intelligence, AI, to speed up the creation of personalized cancer vaccines, which basically means AI-powered vaccines that can potentially reduce the time needed to develop vaccines. So what is known about the new cancer vaccine? According to Russia's TASS news agency, the vaccine is the result of collaborative efforts among several research centers. Earlier, medical expert and researcher Alexander Ginsberg had reportedly told TASS News that as per preclinical trials, the vaccine can suppress tumor growth and prevent the spread of cancer in the human body. What's more, unlike preventive vaccines, which are basically vaccines designed to prevent the onset of the disease, this one is reportedly designed to treat cancer patients and will even be personalized for each individual. You see, if the vaccine works successfully, this could open new avenues in the fight against cancer and offer fresh hope to those affected by the disease. How exactly do they work? You see, while most vaccines can contain a weakened or dead bacteria, this brand of vaccines uses a molecule called messenger RNA or mRNA that are introduced to the body that prompts the cells to produce a specific protein. In the case of cancer, it basically helps the body's immune system to identify and attack cancer cells. When it comes to medical advancements, Russia has a rich history in virology and vaccine development. In the 1950s, Soviet collaborators were essential to the initial production and testing of oral polio vaccine. Reportedly, from recent times, take the example of Sputnik 5, which is the first vaccine to be approved globally for COVID-19 and among 3 in the world with the efficacy of over 90%. When it comes to the new cancer vaccine, some scientists don't seem to be fully convinced. Speaking to American weekly magazine Newsweek, Professor Kingston Mills, a prominent immunologist at Trinity College Dublin, Ireland, has reportedly said that unless data from a clinical trial emerges and is made public, there may be reasons to raise doubts. Scientists have also questioned what kind of cancer does this vaccine exactly treat, or if this vaccine is meant to cover all kinds of cancer. What's more, according to reports, experts have raised suspicion about the free distribution of these vaccines and the feasibility of scaling production to meet demands without compromising on the quality. Concerns have also been raised regarding the vaccine's approval and regulations, or that if it meets internationally recognized standards. So will the new vaccine prove to be a breakthrough? We will have to wait and watch. Shifting focus, according to a new study, the record-breaking retreat of Antarctic sea ice in 2023 has led to more frequent storms over newly exposed parts of the Southern Ocean. This report exploring another consequence of what's happening, and that is increased heat loss from the ocean to the atmosphere and an associated rise in storms. Scientists know that the loss of Antarctic sea ice can diminish penguin numbers, cause ice shelves to melt in warmer waters, and impede the Southern Ocean from absorbing carbon dioxide. Since 2016, there has been a large-scale reduction in Antarctic sea ice, but nothing like 2023, when a record amount failed to reform over the winter. For this study, researchers focused on 3 regions that experienced unusually high levels of sea ice retreat that year, using satellite imagery, ocean and atmospheric data, and wind and temperature measurements. They found some newly ice-free areas experienced double the heat loss compared to a stabler period before 2015. This was accompanied by increase in atmospheric storm frequency over previously ice-covered regions. The loss of heat caused by reduced sea ice could have implications for how the ocean circulates and the wider climate system. Oceans are a crucial climate regulator and carbon sink, storing more than 90% of the excess heat trapped near the Earth's surface by greenhouse gas emissions. In particular, sea ice retreat could mean changes in how a deeper layer of cold, dense Antarctic bottom water absorbs and stores heat. The study researchers said that further in-depth analysis of possible climate impact was needed, including if sea ice retreat could have even further reaching consequences. Squirrels, long thought to be harmless herbivores, have been found to be actively hunting and consuming other rodents. Our next report explaining this dietary change, which has left researchers amazed. Take a look.
Fluffy tails, acrobatic leaps, and a liking for nuts. Squirrels are the embodiment of woodland charm. Beneath their fluffy tails and innocent facades, squirrels hide a shocking secret. These adorable, nut-hoarding furballs are turning into carnivores. This startling behavior, documented in a groundbreaking study in the Journal of Ethology, marks the first evidence of widespread carnivory among these rodents. Researchers recorded 74 interactions between ground squirrels and voles, with 42% involving deliberate predation. Though over 30 species of squirrels are known to consume small amounts of meat, ranging from fish to birds, this behavior was previously thought to involve scavenging. The study confirms that hunting is a deliberate, adaptive behavior. This shift raises critical questions about what drives these squirrels to hunt. Some scientists suggest it could be tied to human-induced environmental changes, much like raccoons, coyotes, and hyenas that have adapted their diets and behaviors due to habitat disruption. Researchers are now investigating whether this predatory behavior is learned or instinctual. Do parent squirrels pass the skill down to their offsprings? Could this dietary shift alter the delicate balance of ecosystems? Bureau Report WION, World is One.
The moon, from the dazzling full moon to its crescent form, our planet's only natural satellite, orbiting at a distance of 385,000 kilometers, has been an object of human fascination and intrigue from time immemorial. And now scientists say the moon might be much older than previously thought. Our next report telling you more.
Moon is our silent celestial companion. It has watched over Earth for eons. A silent witness to the birth of life and its evolution. But how old is this steadfast sentinel? New research suggests it is far older than previously believed, potentially rewriting the history of our planet and its satellite. For decades, scientists have debated the moon's age. Apollo mission samples suggested a younger moon, formed around 4.35 billion years ago. But fresh findings challenge this timeline. A groundbreaking study has been published in Nature journal. Researchers from the US, France, and Germany indicate the moon may have formed as early as 4.53 billion years ago. Well, basically, it was just after Earth's birth. This means the moon is at least 100 million years older than previously estimated. The leading theory of the moon's formation revolves around a massive collision in the early solar system. Around 4.6 billion years ago, as Earth was still a molten, chaotic mass, a Mars-sized object called Theia collided with it. This cataclysmic impact ejected material into orbit, which eventually cooled down to form the moon. However, the new analysis provides a more nuanced timeline. It suggests the moon formed earlier than thought and later experienced a significant remelting event. This occurred as it drifted away from the Earth, with gravitational forces generating immense heat that reshaped its surface. This revised timeline could explain some of the moon's mysteries: the absence of massive impact basins, its lower metal content compared to Earth, and its unique evolutionary path. The findings also provide deeper insights into Earth's own turbulent history, offering a glimpse into the violent birth of the solar system. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Christmas is almost here and preparations have started for the glorious holiday season around the world. Our next report getting you glimpses of the preparations in various parts where cities are decked up for the season. Take a look.
This year is different year. My message is the message of peace from the heart of the world, Jerusalem, in the Holy Land. Merry Christmas, everybody. I love you all.
And on that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas tonight. This is me, Molly Gampir, signing off. Thanks very much for watching.
This week on Tech It Out, we tell you about some of the biggest tech innovations of 2024. We also show you a unique robot that is helping the police patrol the streets of China. And find out how AI is revolutionizing the wind energy landscape. All this and more on WION World is One at these times.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
The countdown to Christmas has begun. So add these all-time iconic movies to your binge watch list.
This is going to be your best Christmas ever.
Know all about the Christmas Queen, aka Mariah Carey. And meet legendary Indian singer Usha Uthup. All this and much more with me, Isha Hanspal, at these times only on WION E-Club.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation. This week on the West Asia Post, as the European Union tells Russia and Iran to back off from Syria, Iran asserts that the resistance has not died in Syria. We ask what lies ahead for deposed Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Also on the show, Israel says Hamas is showing flexibility in hostage talks. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu takes the stand in a corruption trial. Catch the West Asia Post only on WION World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
West African leaders from the regional group ECOWAS meet for a summit with 3 nation members led by military governments on the brink of quitting the bloc. Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger reaffirm as irreversible their decision to quit the group. Human rights groups condemn police action in Kenya after hundreds of activists held peaceful protests in the streets of Nairobi against the rise in femicide cases in the country. And 160 athletes, including 40 young women, gather in the Kimana Reserve for the Maasai Olympics. The event serves to replace the traditional Olamayo, a Maasai rite of passage that involves group lion hunting for young Maasai men to prove their skills, identify their leaders, and attract girlfriends. World of Africa at these times on WION. World is One.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
Vielleicht nur als Imposant.